decline of the Indus civilization in Gujarat associated with a reorganization of the pastoral economy? Only minor changes are evident. And what that means to me is that in this region, the pastoral economy was largely resilient. And by that I mean the farmers were largely resilient. The climate changed because that's what climates do, and the farmers adapted because that's what farmers do, I think. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Brad. So I'd like to invite next speaker, Dr. Dennis Friends, please.
Many thanks. I wish to first thank the organizers of the conference, in particular Dr. Lashari and all the eminent, the minister and all the people from the government of Sindh for having organized these unique events and for having allowed me to be part of these great events. So today, I will present the stylistic, functional, and technical study of a large collection of artifacts made from ivory of Asian elephant discovered at the site of Gunur Tepe in southern Turkmenistan. So I will expand the horizon of our discussion because one of the most interesting features of the Indus civilization is that we found objects produced in the Indus Valley or somehow related with contemporaneous production in the Indus Valley in the entire Middle Asia, from Afghanistan to Oman, from Iran to up to the Mediterranean Sea. And nothing similar happened with other culture in the Bronze Age. So part of my study is to understand this entrepreneurial characteristic of the Indus Valley and how the Indus people produced and commercialized their objects throughout this very, very large area. So my presentation will discuss only marginally objects from Mohenjo-Daro. I will use Mohenjo-Daro as a continuous reference, but I didn't have the chance yet to study in detail those similar objects from Mohenjo-Daro. And I hope that in the future the brackets will be removed and I can present the similar research also on objects from Mohenjo-Daro. So in any case, this is a topic that is connected with one of the highest cultural and technical achievements of this region, taming of elephant and carving of ivory. So of course I want to thank the Minister of Culture, Tourism of Government of Sindh, the National Fund for Mohenjo-Daro, and again in particular Mr. Dr. Lashari. I need to thank also the Italian mission to Turkmenistan for having supported me during the research, and most of all, the late Professor Victor Starianidi and Professor Dubova, who granted the permission for studying those objects. And again, I selected this case study among different that I might have presented in this conference because, as Brad just said, when I made some studies, I always think about having the same done here in Mohenjo-Daro, because Mohenjo-Daro shaped our life. Mohenjo-Daro is always a point of reference for us. So I hope, again, that in the future we can do similar works here. And Gunur Tepe is an excavated site, and I was allowed to study important materials in museums and at the site. And I hope in the future, if a new generation of study will start about Mohenjo-Daro, they include also the study of objects, because they are as much as important as the structures in the site, because only by merging them together we can hope to understand the intimate nature of this important culture. So, as I told you, the study of this object is part of a long-term study I am conducting in collaboration with other scholars to reconstruct in detail the organization of the Indus external trade. For my PhD, I've studied the diffusion of Indus production and raw materials, techniques and technologies, iconographies, trying to eventually identify specific marketing strategies implemented by the Indus merchant according to the needs of the region they were trading to. Over the past 3 years, the original research has been upgraded with new detailed studies of specific group of materials from different regions of Middle Asia, from Mesopotamia to Iran, Gulf, and the Sultanate of Oman, and including also these ivories from Gunur Tepe in Turkmenistan. Gunur Tepe is the largest settlement of the Oxus civilization, known also as the Bactria-Marjan archaeological complex of BMAC. The Oxus civilization developed intense commercial and cultural exchanges with the neighboring regions of the Indus valleys and the Iranian plateau, but also far beyond with Mesopotamia, Eastern Arabia, and the Near East. The existence in the mountain of Central Asia of abundant sources of precious stones and minerals that were not present in the alluvial basins of the great rivers, such as lapis lazuli, turquoise, lead, tin, and silver, was probably the main reason for the emergence and intensification of trade with Central Asia during the Bronze Age. Trade exchanges between the urban centers along the Indus rivers and the Oxus rivers have been quite intense, and they eventually promoted reciprocal cultural interactions. Artifacts from the Indus Valley retrieved from plundered necropolises date the beginning of exchanges between the two regions to the first half of the 3rd millennium BC. Evidence of contacts in the second half of the 3rd millennium BC, when Mohenjo-Daro reached its peak, are unfortunately based mainly on objects from private collections. They include seals with motifs related to the Indus iconography, long and bleached carnelian beads, and different containers in chloride with Indus motif scarves. More informative are the finds from excavation of sites like Dashli Tepe in Bactria, Altin Tepe, Keleli, Ajikui, and most of all, Gunur Tepe in Marjana. Gunur Tepe is about 55 hectares of size, and it consists of different archaeological areas, which according to Victor Sarianidi, who excavated the site, all approximately date between 2200 and 1700 BC. There is a main fortified complex labeled Gunur North, which has been excavated in the northern area of the site and includes the so-called monumental palace, several temples and ritual areas, and the so-called royal necropolis. Sarianidi excavated also a smaller square complex, fortified, which series of towers, round towers with concentric walls along the perimeters. And he excavated 3,000 graves of a large necropolis which extends for about 10 hectares west of Gunur North. At Gunur Tepe, just a few ceramic containers and the typical square stamp seals with the image of an elephant and 8 Indus signs can be possibly related to production imported from the Indus civilization. Other imports from Indus Valley included bleached and long carnelian beads, objects in faience, and a few soft stone and faience vessels, while other metal and stone seals seem more local production inspired to Indus iconographies. More informative is the interpretation of one human and animal sculptures found at Gunur. There is an unfinished fragment of a human statue in steatite that has direct parallels at Mohenjo-Daro and affinities with other figures embossed on silver vessels from Bactria in Afghanistan and with 2 stone heads in Iran, Sistan. Moreover, the statue of a squatting ram, which has been used in Gunur to support the head of the dead, closely resembles a group of similar sculptures found in the upper levels of Mohenjo-Daro. The evidence for the production and use of these statues at Gonur suggests the presence at the end of the 3rd and the beginning of the 2nd millennium BC of an intercultural sphere of shared beliefs that encompassed Central Asia, Baluchistan, and the Indus Valley, more than just a simple exchange of finished goods. While there are a lot of Indus materials in the different regions of Middle Asia, there is very little evidence for the presence of actual imports from Central Asia, and not only from Central Asia actually, at Indus sites. They mainly consist, in the case of Central Asia, of metal and stone seals and their impression on clay, and of a few other small finds. So coming to the ivory objects found at Gonur Tepe, the study is based on the direct examination of all artifacts in ivory found at site up to 2008. All ivory artifacts resulted manufactured from tusks of Asian elephant. Several indicators concur to identify the elephant, and specifically Asian male elephant, as the unique source of ivory used to produce these objects. In particular, are characteristic of elephant ivory the presence and arrangement of the so-called Schreger lines, the distinct cone-in-cone pattern resulting from the continuous growing of the tusk, the occasional presence of residual trace of cementum on the surface of a few objects, and the specific surface defibering derived from the post-depositional processes. So when the size and orientation of the cone-in-cone pattern in the objects made possible to broadly reconstruct the size, proportion, and curvature of the tusk, they resulted always compatible with the tusk of Asian elephant, which have smaller and straighter tusks with respect to the African species. Information about the distribution of Asian elephant in the Bronze Age is scanty and discontinuous, but scholars agreed that the Indus River basin must have been the northwestern limit of their distribution in the 3rd millennium BC. The historical presence of elephants in the Near East and the rare discovery of remains of Asian elephant in the region led some scholars to propose that isolated residue population of Elephas maximus, the Asian elephant, were living also in Syria and in a thin belt along the Makran coastline during the Bronze Age. However, they probably resulted from the trade of living animals from the Indus Valley. In fact, in this period, the production of ivory objects in Syria and in Mesopotamia was based almost exclusively on hippopotamus ivory, and moreover, the cuneiform text informed about the arrival of elephant tusks from the Indus Valley through Dilmun, through Bahrain. Oops. Yeah. So the physical absence of elephants in Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and in the Iranian plateau during the Bronze Age is reflected also in the iconographic tradition of these regions, which include representation of such a majestic and inspiring animals on objects important only on objects imported or somehow related to the Indus Valley. For what concerns the functional typology of the ivories found at Gonur, they were related mainly to the spheres of personal care and gaming. Two combs in ivory have been found in funerary context, and combs decorated with dotting circle motifs are very frequent also at Indus sites, and were found also at Ras Al Jins and Bat in Oman, and at Tel Abraik in the Emirates. Interestingly, one of the combs found at Tel Abraik was decorated with floral and geometric motifs found also at Gonur Tepe on stone vessels. A large spatula has the handle shaped and finely decorated in bas relief on both sides to reproduce a chimeric winged creature with a snake head and lion body devouring a cow. This motif has parallels in the polychrome mosaics that decorated several graves at the necropolis of Gonur. Another undecorated spatula was probably also the result of a local production, because this object, as far as I know, is not attached at the Indus sites. two classes of objects in ivory found at Gonur that were certainly related with gaming boards and dice. Sarianidi found 3 gaming boards for the so-called game of the 20 square, similar to the ones found at Ur and Sharisokta. This type of gaming board is not very common at Indus sites. Only 5 broken boards of very poor quality have been found so far, 1 in terracotta at Lothal and Mohenjo-Daro, and 3 in limestones at Dolavira. A careful examination of all these inlays revealed that several of them retain on the backside partial traces of dotting circle motifs. Evidently, they were cut out from a larger decorated object and testify to the reworking of ivory objects till the maximum possible exploitation of this very precious and rare raw material. Different types of dice were used with these gaming boards. A very standardized type of 4-sided stick dice in ivory has been found at Gonur. This dice has dotting circle motifs on 3 sides, incremental from 1 to 3, and combination of crosses and transversal lines on the 4th side. 3 ivory stick dice of the same types have been discovered also at Altin Tepe, another site of the Oxus civilization close to Gonur Tepe. The stick dice from Gonur and Altin Tepe have always the same pattern, which occurs only in a few stick dice found at Indus sites, but with a little different arrangement, with longitudinal parallel lines or transversal crescents instead of crosses and transversal lines. And at Sharisokta in Iran, stone stick dice with dotting circle and crosser was found in contexts that seems predating their use in Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley, where we have to remember that cubical dice were also present in relevant number. At Altin Tepe, stick dice were found in hordes together with gaming pieces also in ivory. Similar square, round, and octagonal plaquettes decorated with oblique lines at the corner and large concentric circles in the middle, or with dotting circle motifs or grid patterns were also found at Gonur Tepe. And few comparable pieces were found also at Ur and Sharisokta, but are very rare at Indus sites and almost never made from ivory, but stone. Other larger and thicker ivory discs decorated with a scorpio and people leaf motifs or with dotted circle may have been also used as ritual paraphernalia or perhaps in association with larger gaming sets in imperishable materials. The people leaf motif originated certainly from the Indus Valley, but was included quite soon in the decorative tradition of Marjana. Representation of scorpion are instead very rare in the Indus Valley. The collection of ivory artifacts from Gonur Tepe includes also other exceptional pieces that have no equivalents in the ivory production of the Indus civilization, but have strong connection to the art tradition of Central Asia and Marjana in particular. There is a handle in ivory carefully carved in form of 2 interwoven snakes that closely resemble the handle of a metal knife from Gonur, and the winding snakes that is also a very common motif in Marjana. Enigmatic are instead these